These images is totally picked at random, but we are going to try and process them as single exposures, so we're not doing HDR today. I think I've done enough HDR on my channel. These images I'm going to preload with a preset that I often use. This preset isn't going to change anything on the photos, or it's going to apply some detail and some clarity, but that's about it. It simply preloads the modules or filters that I use the most. That's this preset job. So I'm going to select all of these photos, and I'm going to presets, and I'm going to find my category, which is this one. And I'm simply going to select this preset, which is a quick add effects preset. And this preset will now apply on all of those photos. And as you can see, it's not changing a lot. Now, let's go into the first photo. If this photo is usable or not, I don't really know yet. I kind of like to do a little processing on all of the photos that are maybes. So this is a maybe for me. There's different directions I can take with this photo. I can, for example, try and do some kind of high key black and white, or even a dark black and white, or darken down this picture, maybe try and make it a soft, like trollish, mysterious pictures. There's a lot of ways I can go with this picture, so to be sure if it's usable or not, I need to go in and start developing just slightly here. So I could click AI Auto, and yeah, let's do that. So this creates a kind of a harsh image, and it's a bit washed out in the colors, but this is winter, so the colors are kind of washed out already. It seems that we have a bit of highlight situation here. Let's just drop the highlights a bit there. Okay, so this is so far what I want to do inside of here, or maybe let's just go up on the black point to something more neutral actually, and I'll rather do it with a curve instead. Let's just try the white balance, and I'm going to try with a bit more magenta, and I'm actually going high on the vibrance to around there, and I could drop the exposure now. It feels like this is an image where I do want to drop the exposure or make it a bit darker, but I need to go into the effects, and I'm going to do a basic adjustment on the curves, but I'm activating the clipping warning so I see where we have problems. And obviously we have problems in the highlights. So I'm dropping the whites and creating a white point where we don't have the clipped highlights. So I'm pulling down on the curve. I'm pulling down to about 250 to 49. So the output, this is what I'm tweaking right now. And I'm tweaking the whites on the output. But we can pull down a bit here. So I'm thinking around 249 or somewhere around there. All right, so we created a decent white point. I could try and get rid of the crushed blacks, but I do like some crushed blacks in my images, at least in the landscape. But if you want to get rid of it, you just go up on the black point, up on the vertical here. If you want to create more contrast, you can pull in on the black point, and I kind of like that. That's giving me the direction I want to go actually. So it made it a bit more contrasty. Now, if you want to leave the midpoints where it is originally, you can just create a midpoint and go up to the midpoint there. Now we have get rid of the blown highlights, and we have added some contrast. Now I could tweak this curve to make it even more contrasty, but this curve for me is a black point curve and white point curve. So I'm going to call it that. So now I know that this is a do not touch curve. This is me setting the black and white point I want to start with. Now I can start and tweak this further. I may want to create even more contrast, so I may want to add another curve. If I can find it, there it is. Now I kind of want this curve to be on the top of all of those other effects. It's just I kind of like it in the order I'm processing things. Right, so if I want to create kind of a more contrasty curve, so I can lift the highlights a bit, we might blow them again, but let's try just a little bit and drop the contrast just a little bit more, or the shadows. And that's starting to look fine to me. Let's check the before. So this is where we started, and this is where we are now. So a simple tweak in the develop module and do two curves creates this. So I'm pretty happy about that. But let's just check the white point again just to make sure. Yeah, we are clipping just a bit, but it's such a minimal clipping that I'm going to leave it for now. All right, so now it's time for me to tweak the colors. So in the populate effect preset that I have color adjustments. It's deactivated by default, or it is in my preset. You can see here that I've added two settings here for cyan and for blue, and the rest is at default. Now there is a bit of red in this picture. To kind of see what color there is in the picture, you can use this drop thing and just pull it out to where you want to change the color. So let's say I want this part of the image more saturated, or that color tone. I can pull in, click and drag up, and I'm dragging to the right, and that creates more saturation on that specific color. I can desaturate it completely if I want to, or add more of this if I want to. And I kind of want to add quite a bit of saturation on that point. And again, you can do it, for example, on this. And this looks green, but it might actually be yellow. Yeah, it's yellow. And I can pull down or pull up on the yellows. And I kind of want to pull down the brightness as well on that yellow. And let's go for less saturation, and I'm pulling up the range to kind of include more in the same color range here. And I think that kind of works. Now I don't care about using that anymore. I know there is probably a bit of orange here. If I want to, I can go for more red in the orange. And you can see it changes up in the treetops there where the sun is kissing the tree line. And I kind of want to introduce more saturation there and pull down the brightness just a bit there. So we are now creating a lot of color separation, and that's something you want in a woodland picture, unless it's a foggy, misty woodland picture. Then you might not want to tweak the colors at all. There is a bit of green inside this picture. Usually yellow appears to our eyes to be green, but more often than not, things we see in a picture that appears green to us is actually more yellow than green. It's kind of rare that green is actually green. But let's see if there is. Yeah, there's some green, especially in the pine needles, and a bit on the ground as well. Now we can try and separate the green even more from the yellow, but doing so might lead to that kind of crazy radioactive effect. I'm going down a bit on the range. Yeah, that's a bit better. and maybe down just a bit on the saturation as well. We are going to darken this picture so it will appear more saturated when we do. Now I also want to make sure to tweak the kind of magenta purplish tones, and I kind of like that. That's a lot of saturation, but yeah, why not? And let's drop some of the brightness. Let's check without. So this is without the color adjustment, and this is with, and I kind of like it. Let's check the before. So this is our starting point, and this is where we are at now. And that's using 2 curves, 1 color adjustment, and yeah, tweaking the tone and color. Right, so now I want to start dropping the exposure just a bit there. Not too much, because I'm probably going to use a vignette as well. So let's put that vignette down there now. And yeah, that's it's a bit harsh. So maybe go up on the brightness just a bit there. But I'm kind of starting to like this right now. Now I kind of want to I want to warm up the ground here, but I don't want to warm it up too much. I don't want it to be obvious. And still, I don't want to warm up the rest of the image. So I'm going to try and do something weird here. So I'm going to temp, and I'm putting that at +1. And we are going up to the mask menu, and I'm going to put our select center on the shape. I'm clicking in the center. I'm going to invert this mask, and you can see that warmed up everything inside the circle here. I'm pulling that circle down, and I kind of want to place it over here, somewhere around here. And I kind of want to make it feather out even more here. And let's pull it down just a bit there. So let's check without. And this is with. So yeah, I kind of like it. It's a bit much right now, but let's see what we can do about it. So I'm going up just ever so slightly on the shadows. And let's check the before and after here. So yeah, it's a bit much, but let's go down on the exposure just a bit more there. There, I think something like that. I'm actually going to increase the vibrance on this circle. Yeah, to there. And I actually like this. I would now go in and do the dodge and burn and stuff like that, but I'm not going to do it. Let's go to the next image instead. So let's go down and activate the film strip. Let's do this for the sake of this video. Right, so this is also activated with our preset. So these things are active, the tone enhancer and the curves. The curve is at neutral, and let's check the black and white point here. So Alt J to bring that out. And if we want to, we can create a black point here, so I can pull that in, but I don't want to do that yet. So I'll rather start at the develop module. I'm hitting auto again, and that actually brings out some details in the sky. And we do have some crushed black. Being that I'm going down on the haze, I'm actually going up on the black point, and I'm going to create a black point in the curves again. Now, I kind of like this already actually, but I'm going to bring up some contrast. And the white point is good, so I'm not going to touch that. Let's do the white balance. Nothing really changed, but I'm going up just slightly on the magenta and a bit on the vibrance. As you can see, I leave the saturation alone. I usually do. And especially being that I'm using a color adjustment under effects, I usually leave the saturation as is. Now, this image is nothing special really, because there's no real sky. Everything is blue except along the tree lines and the little details we have here. But it can turn out pretty nice anyway. We just need to do some work on it. Let's go into the curves. Let's activate the clipping warning. So every time you change modules or go from develop to effects, the clipping warning is suddenly deactivated. I don't know why ON1 does it this way. If someone knows, please tell me. It's pretty annoying, to be honest, but that's the way they like to do it, apparently. Yeah, I'm going to... let's lift the light just a bit there. And let's create kind of a black point like that. And let's go down and create even more. And I kind of like that. So the midpoint isn't at the midpoint anymore, but that's okay. For now, at least. Let's introduce some dynamic contrast. I like the textures over here. And let's just deactivate the clipping warning right now. And I like the details that it pulls out from the rocks. Let's check. It might be noisy in the tree line. It's a bit noisy, but not too bad, so it's okay. Let's go for color adjustment. And I'm just going to activate it, and it's pulling down the blues. We already knew that it would, but it's a bit too much. Let's just reset some of the settings here. So that's a bit better. It's more neutral. Now we can try and kind of create some effect on the yellow here and maybe turn it more over to the orange. That sometimes works. And I think it does actually. We can bring down the brightness. I think maybe it's too much if we do. I kind of like it around there actually. We can check the saturation. Now, yeah, I kind of like that. The yellow is interesting as well. We can try and go up on the saturation on the yellow. And maybe bring in some more light or down. And I like it around neutral. Let's go up even more on the saturation. And we can try and make it more orange. It's hard for me to decide here. Kind of like both. Yeah, let's keep it there for now. Let's go up on the reds as well. There is just a bit of red over here. And that's fine. It's not too much. And I doubt there is any true green inside the tree line. So I doubt there's any point doing anything at all. Yeah, it's changing just a bit. So maybe we can pull up some brightness. Yeah, let's keep it there. All right, so we now have a high detailed image. We have a dark tree line, but it's dark. The sun had set like, I think it's about 10 minutes ago or something like that. Again, as I said, it doesn't feel like it's anything special, this image, but I kind of like it anyway. So we can try and make the background or the sky less. Try and crop it away, that's what I mean. But then we end up with a lot of foreground, but I'm just gonna try that crop. And I think it works actually. We can try with a vignette and see if that pulls our eyes more in towards the middle there. So a big softy. And of course a big softy here is a bit much. So let's go up on the brightness. But yeah, I like this image. Let's just go up a bit on the shadows. Not too much. And there we are. I'm actually very surprised. I really like this one. I'm actually going to rate this a 5. I need to do more work. Again, we have the dodge and burn that we need to do, but it's a good starting point for something that can actually turn out okay. Just while I'm seeing that the spot, I'm going to remove it. So, and that's gone. Yeah, that's this image. Let's go back to the grid view. And as you can see, I've now picked this to be a 5-star. It's actually not a 5-star, it's a 3-star. And if I want to pick a color for this, I can pick it to green. And green for me means, okay, this is a good image. You can do some more stuff on it. Right, but I do have auto advanced on. So each time I pick an image, it's going to go to the next image. Let's do a vertical. So we have done one of those as well. And again, this is populated with my preset. I'm going into the edit module. And as you can see, we have very little details in the shadows and very little details in the highlights. We have, or the blacks, we have details in the shadows. We have plenty details in the midtones. So this is telling me that we should probably create a black and white point here. So let's go and create a black point, and let's create a white point. And as you can see, we don't need to go all the way over here, but we do need to go up just a bit there, it feels like. And of course we can go down on the midpoints or do whatever we want, but I'm going to leave it like this. Now let's try the dynamic contrast again. And I'm not going to have dynamic contrast in the sky, so I'm going to invert that curve, or that mask I mean, and go up and pick a gradient and just drop it down here. And we are turning it all like this, and I'm actually going into the brush again, and I'm going to paint out whatever it did up here, because I don't want any dynamic contrast in the sky. Let's check the mask. Yeah, that's fine. All right, let's go into the tone enhancer. I know we are pulling up some details, and I know that we are doing something with the clarity. Let's equalize that by going up a bit on the shadows. So that's, yeah, to around there. Now, we could check the black and white point again. So we are crushing some blacks, and we are, or are we not? Yeah, then. No, we are not clipping the highlights at all, so that's good. Let's go back to the tone menu and do an AI auto, and you can see that it really did not a good job, because we have tweaked the image using the curves and the tone enhancer. We need to do this manually, and I'm going to kind of drop the highlights a bit, but not much at all, not much to be me at least. And I'm going up on the shadows just a bit there, and I'm going down on the haze. Let's click the auto button on the white balance. Let's introduce some magenta to around there. And let's check the before, and this is the after. So it's a good transformation for now. Let's go up a bit on the vibrance. And by going up on the vibrance, you can see that I'm actually warming up the tones here, where the sun is casting just a bit of light, not much. The sun had set, but it's still casting a bit of light here. So I don't really need to warm up the image to create kind of a feeling that there is some sun rays being casted or sunlight being casted. So that's nice. Let's go up a bit on the contrast. Yeah, to about there. And now again, I want to check before and after, because I want to enhance what is there, not create something that's not there. Let's go into the effects. Let's go for color adjustment. And you can see by default we have the blue and or the cyan, aqua, and the blue doing stuff. And it's a bit heavy, to be honest. Right, so I'm just going to name this blues. And I'm going to create another color adjustment, and we're going to deal with the red, orange, the yellow, and stuff like that. There are some red here, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, you can see it clearly over here. Now, do I want to remove some of those reds, or do I want to push it over to the orange? Or yeah, there's a lot of things we can do with those reds. I'm going up on the saturation and maybe down on the brightness. Let's go into the orange, and I'm especially looking for the orange tones that are in the sunlight. I'm going up on the range and quite a bit on the saturation, and maybe push it more over to the reds, to something like that. And by doing that by accentuating the light that is just above the tree, it's kind of rescuing this image, because there is no clouds whatsoever. There's only a blue sky, so there's nothing really interesting going on the top here. And if it weren't for this orange, there would be nothing there. It would be just a leading line that's leading up to nothing. And so we are quite lucky with this picture. And we are tweaking the yellows, not too much. I kind of like it. Let's put that more over to the orange. Yeah, to around there. Let's go in and do some work on the greens, which shouldn't be, there's not a lot of green there. All right, the cyan and blue is okay. Let's go for the purple and the magentas. And I like that. That's kind of accentuating and making the eyes more contrasty. I don't know if you can see it, but it's actually doing that. And I kind of like it. Let's go in for the magentas. Yeah, to something like that. All right, so now we have done 5 effects. In this picture, glow might actually work great, but it's going to darken the picture. But let's try. Yeah, it's darkening the picture, but it's doing a good job, I think. Let's do a vignette, big softy, and that is of course way too much, but I'm going to do my kind of own vignette, but it's going to be inverted for the middle here. So I'm going up to the mask toolbar, picking center, dropping center around there. Let's go down on the size, and I'm going down a lot on that size. We are inverting this, and we are going up a bit on the feather. And this is countering some of the darks that the vignette is pulling in. And we can go up more, actually. And it kind of makes it a bit more contrasty as well. So you can see without this, it's way too dark. But with this effect, it helps a lot, or this local adjustment, it helps a lot. I think I'm actually going to go up just a bit on the width of this vignette thing to something like this. Yeah. And I think that's it for this image. We could maybe warm it up and try to do that with the vibrance actually. And that is way better than this. So this is a huge difference. We could argue it's a bit too saturated over here, and I could could agree. So let's drop the vibrance there, and that's a nice conversion. As I said in the beginning, this was bracketed photos, but I can do a lot with the light just by doing a single exposure. This was underexposed. It was -1 to start with. So we have a bit of highlights to work on. And we also, being that this camera has a pretty high dynamic range, we have shadows that we can lift and do a lot with. And I like it. I would do some some dodging on the water here or the ice where we have the highlight details, and maybe I would do a split toning as well. So there are work left to do in this image, but as a starting point or base, this image is quite good. Anyway, this is a bit of my workflow on these kind of images. It's a workflow that I've been using for a long time, especially populating a few of those effects that I use the most. It's for me a time saver. Anyway, this is it for this video. It's a long video as usual, sorry about that. But if you like this video, hit that like button. If you want to watch more from me, I really appreciate it if you subscribe. I love seeing that my numbers are going up. So thanks a lot to all of you that have subscribed so far. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the support, and have a nice day and goodbye.